inmates trying to persuade the fairer sex on the inside to help a guy out is nothing new in America's correctional system. Thousands of cases have been reported for dozens of years, most of them involving coercion or various forms of bribery. But in the case of female employees of prisons engaging in kinky acts with male convicts, the numbers are quite alarming. Over a 5-year period alone, spanning from 2010 to 2015, there have been over 50 incidents reported involving prison nookie between female officers and incarcerated men. For one officer in Texas, things began innocently with simple contraband violations, a bag of marijuana here or a cell phone there. But things quickly escalated when the bond between the woman and the prisoner in question turned sexual, the two engaging in relations all over the prison grounds for several months. February 2013. A female guard at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, New York, stepped up her game when she bagged 2 convicts, one of them a death row cop killer, whom she became pregnant by. Their actions were captured by surveillance cameras, as well as recorded phone calls to the inmate about the pregnancy. She would later be sentenced to a year in jail and, upon giving birth, had to surrender her baby to authorities because of a cocaine addiction. She managed to avoid a potential 15-year punishment due to additional charges, such as leaving other prisoners unattended and allowing the man to assault other inmates. It is yet undetermined whether she will have to register as a sex offender upon release, since her actions were technically construed as assault. But it didn't stop with the inmates. The lady officer also ping-ponged between 8 to 10 fellow guards during the same stretch. Stretch being the operative word there. Her attorneys appealed to the jury for sympathy regarding the woman's past, which involved previous drug problems and forms of abuse. Recorded conversations had the woman reasoning that having a child with the doomed killer may actually spare him the death penalty on appeal. The most egregious example was in Baltimore City, Maryland, where one inmate broke several long-standing Longfellow records. From 2009 through 2013, one lone man impregnated no less than 4 female corrections officers. Lavishing them with gifts such as a Mercedes and jewelry, he convinced them to recruit several others to help carry out his elaborate criminal operations. Then he began bedding down a select few. These girls apparently had never heard of Plan B. Thank you, Jesus. One woman actually bested the other contestants when she actually gave birth to a second child of the incarcerated man. He was a former gang head that operated a literal cottage industry inside the prison walls that included the moving of drugs, cell phones, cigarettes, and other delights, all smuggled in with the aid of 13 female guards. The salary of the Hefner-esque Romeo rivaled that of many people in the outside world, nearly $4,000 a week in revenue. The house of cards toppled during a surprise inspection by federal agents, where countless prescription drugs were discovered in multiple cells, along with the other aforementioned goods that were being hawked by the convict group. Most guards admitted to their unlawful involvement. 2 others needed no words. The inmate's name was tattooed on their bodies. Other times it's not even an officer. In June of 2015, simultaneous to the escape of 2 New York prisoners in another genitally fueled case, a correctional facility food worker in North Carolina became carnally involved with an inmate and aided in his escape as well. And yet again, it was a convicted murderer the woman became romantically entangled with and helped set free. He was just the boy next door, Cell F. The most inexplicable element was from the prisoner himself, who, despite previously being found guilty of murder, only had 3 years left on his sentence. The lady worker's bond, $500,000. Some jailbird Don Juans have actually carried on their tawdry trysts for years at a time. A Montana man managed to bag 5 lady officers over a 7-year span, and even his prison therapist. Though all of the women were dismissed, the inmate was given no penal or penile punishment. He was ultimately transferred to another location, and evidence has yet to surface of his involvement with any guards at his new home. An ABC News statistic detailed that of the affairs between cons and guards of the female persuasion, around 84% were willing in nature. Psychologists, presumably ones that didn't make bacon with an inmate, theorize that these are women who may appear less desirable to the outside world. Convicted felons know what dialogue these women can be susceptible to, involving their appearances and what emotions to exploit. Many of the fired guards had troubled pasts or were lacking in self-esteem, making them easy prey to any form of positive male attention, even from convicted killers or rapists. Or it may not even have anything to do with a lack of validation. A handful of women caught in these affairs have admitted to the intoxication of the deceitful nature of their dalliances. The idea of being with a bad boy or the risk of getting caught is far too exciting a prospect to pass up. Reforming these men or feelings of pity can also play a part of them taking the risk. Some of these venereal vixens have even been married women, driven by the excitement of deceiving their husbands with the most unexpected of forbidden lovers. Of course, these incidents of sexual misconduct are dwarfed by the number of female guards who keep their noses clean. There are nearly 43,000 women employed by U.S. prisons, many of them looking at the position as a hardcore training ground for ultimately becoming police officers. Dating back to the 1960s, women were kept out of men's prisons for reasons even beyond safety concerns. In New York alone, female guards were not permitted in male institutions until 1976. Corrections administrators are encouraged not only by the advances in the equality aspect, but by a drastic downturn in male guard on female prisoner sexual misconduct cases. In previous years, women inmates were more fearful of retribution for reporting assaults, but more have spoken up recently, even going as far as to keep evidence of the incident. Following a coerced encounter with an officer in a Delaware prison, one woman was left so violated she decided to take action. After a male guard had discarded his used birth control device onto her bed with the instruction to flush this, the intrepid detainee instead hid away the contraceptive in her cell, later turning it over to prison officials. A simple DNA test confirmed her accusations. This resulted in the guard being flushed out himself and the initiation of a lawsuit for the prisoner. During a 6-year span of the 2000s, correctional facilities saw a 16% rise in employment of women in male prisons. As far as commingling male and female prisoners, the last known co-ed prison was in the late 1990s in Illinois. Only one can imagine what the future holds.